Hello everyone, my name is Keith, and in this video we're taking a look at two M1 Macbook Airs. One with 8 gigs of RAM, one with 16 gigs of RAM. A classic question, which one is better for me? In this video we're going to take a look at some A7S III footage in Premiere Pro. It'll be interesting to see how much better the 16GB variant does than the 8 gigs, and if it really does warrant that extra price for that extra memory. Now let's jump into the 8GB version and play back all of our footage in a sequence with no color grading applied first. We'll be playing back at full quality, so let's see how these actually hold up. So far, our 24 frames per second footage looks like it's playing back just fine. One thing I notice whenever I skip ahead by 1 times, usually if my computer is going to have problems and struggle, when I'm fast forwarding it, it will really start to show after about 3 or 4 seconds. So with these different files, I'm going to play it for a little bit and then skip ahead. And if the computer can play that, usually it's pretty good. I've been looking at this and I haven't seen any dropped frames or any weirdness yet. Let's jump ahead to the other test clip. This is a shorter clip of 24 frames per second, so maybe going from a longer clip to a shorter clip will affect some way. So I'm going to look, and this looks like it's playing back fine to me. There was a weird glitch right there and there again, and it just seems like this Premiere Pro beta has some glitches on it too. So just to confirm, all of our footage does not have those glitches on it from our A7S III, but when we're playing it back and after exporting it, those glitches aren't there. So strange playback glitches, but this is a beta program, so I'm gonna cut it some slack. So our 24 frames per second, the longer and shorter clips are playing back just fine. Let's jump over to the 4K 60, and this is playing back in real time here. And I stabilized this with Catalyst Browse, so that's why it's 60 frames per second and it looks really shaky because there's no optical stabilization from the camera body or the lens. And that looked like it played back fine to me. This is the interpreted 24 frames per second footage. And usually the interpreted footage plays back pretty good. Let's do that fast forward test though and see how it actually holds up. And it is getting a little choppy here. I wonder if we drop down the overall resolution to 1/2, we are at our interpreted footage. And now if we play it back and then skip ahead, I wonder if 1/2 will play back a little better. Then we had a glitch again. So dropping the playback quality down to 1/2, even while we're still fast forwarding, this seems to be playing back just fine. So I'm very impressed with the 4K 60 frames per second. We just have to drop our quality from full to 1/2, which to me, that's not really that big of a deal, especially on a computer that costs a little bit over $1,000. So that's pretty good value there. This is going to be very interesting. So my big computer really struggles with this 4K 120, and this is the real-time footage playing back in our 24 frames per second timeline. So I'm very interested to see this. And we'll just, for the full effect, we'll play it back at full quality. And it looks like it's dropping frames pretty hard. And at the end there, it just started getting really laggy. So let's drop it down to 1/2 real quick and see what we can do. Laggy again, let's do 1/4. In my testing, it seems like 1/4 is the sweet spot, and dropping it down to 1/8 actually introduces more lag, and somehow it's worse footage and it's laggier. So let's see what this 1/4 does. So that's exactly what I anticipated happening to this 4K 120. I anticipated the 60p to be laggy, but the 120 is really tough on your computer. So let's go back to full quality and go to our interpreted 120p. I'm very impressed that this 4K 120 is playing back at full resolution, and I'm not perceiving any glitches or lag. Let's see if we can scrub through our timeline and get some lag out of this interpreted 120p footage. So I know it's hard to tell on a video, but whenever I'm pressing play, there's about a 1/2 second delay and then the video will start playing. But all this asking 422 10-bit 120p footage on a $1,000 computer is pretty insane. I'm going to be interested to see how the 16 gig version handles this, and just to be thorough, let's play this back and then hit fast forward by 1. And the footage is falling apart right now. So let's drop this down to 1/2. Full screen again. We're playing back real time. And now let's hit fast forward once and see how the footage holds up. Just like the 4K 60 footage, dropping it down to 1/2 will even allow us to fast forward through our footage, which I'm very impressed with, because on my bigger computer, if I'm at full quality, it also struggles. So it's crazy to see that a little tiny laptop can hang with my bigger custom built computer. Let's jump back and quickly add a color grade to our footage and see how that impacts our footage. So the color grade I made is just a completely trash, ridiculous Lumetri color thing. So don't judge the grade. I just made this to be like as taxing as possible. And if our computer can play this ridiculous color grade back, I also duplicated it twice more to see if we can really break this thing down. So with our ridiculous color grade on our 24p footage, this looks like it's playing back fine at full resolution. Let's fast forward once and see how this holds up. And it looks fine. It is hard to tell if it's laggy because it's fast forwarding or if it's laggy because it's just too much. Just for kicks here, let's add more color grade to this and play it back, and it's falling apart. So the 3 ridiculous color grades might be too much, especially if it's too much for our 24p footage. So just to be thorough, let's look at our shorter 24p clip, and this looks like it's playing back fine to me. Let's fast forward once, even though this is a shorter clip, it might be hard to see. And it does look like the overall frame is a little bit jumpier with our color grade on. Let's jump into our 60p. This is the real-time footage here. And we're lagging pretty good. And this is full quality. Let's jump down to 1/2 real quick, replay this from the top. And 1/2 is playing back better. Still laggy. Let's try 1/4. And just me inputting, play and pause on the computer is actually lagging pretty good. So that is something to know. If you are going to use 24p or 60p footage and use heavy color grades, it's going to be interesting to see how the 16 gigabyte variant handles that. So let's jump to the color graded, interpreted 60p version, and let's start at 1 full resolution here. And with this footage, it doesn't look like it's playing back very well. This is full quality though. Let's drop this down to 1/2. Start it from the beginning. Dropping down the resolution seems to help, but it's really not that smooth still. They're still dropping some frames here and there. So let's go to our 4K 120 on the 8 gigabyte version, the real time. I think we were playing this back at 1/2 before. Let's try to play it at 1/2 again with our color grade this time. And we're getting a lot of lag right off the bat. Let's go to 1/4 and start it from the beginning. Very laggy even at 1/4. So let's go to full, go to our interpreted footage now. This is the slower 120p footage, and we're playing it. At full resolution, we're getting a little bit of lag. Let's go down to 1/2. With our 4K 120 at 1/2 with the heavy color grade, this actually looks like it's playing back pretty well, which I'm very surprised. So let's go, and if this is playing back well, let's just go 120, put this ridiculous color grade on here 3 times, and see if we can break this thing at 1/2. Huh. That seems like it's playing back fine. I don't know what's going on. That's really interesting. Let's try it at full quality. If it's playing back really well, if it's playing back this well at 1/2, let's go back to the beginning of the clip and play. Yeah, okay. There it broke. So with all those surprising 8 gigabyte tests done, Let's jump over to the 16 gigabyte version and see how much better this computer can play our footage back. Starting off with the 4K 24p uncolor graded footage, our 8 gigabyte version can play this back at full quality just fine, so I'm anticipating the 16 gig version to also play it back just fine. Let's hit fast forward once to see if we get any lag here. Look at this guy with his barn doors. No, I don't see any lag at all. Let's jump to the shorter 24 frames per second clip. And again, the 8 gig played this back just fine, so this one should be playing back just fine too. That looks okay. Let's hit fast forward. And this still looks smooth to me, so no surprises there. And again, this is the uncolor graded footage. So let's jump into our 4K 60 and let's see how the 16 gigabyte version plays this back. It looks pretty smooth, maybe dropping a frame or two here and there, but it's not dropping frames to the point where you can't edit with it. And you would really have to be paying attention to see if those frames are dropping. This is the uncolor graded 60p footage interpreted to the 24p timeline, and this looks like it's playing back at full quality just fine. It looks like it's playing back with no dropped frames. I can't see any frames or skipping happening here. Let's hit fast forward once and see if we can get some frames to skip. A little bit right there, but not that much. For fast forwarding through your clips, if you get a couple frames dropping, for me that's not a big deal. But also this doesn't have a color grade on it yet, and we're playing it back at full quality. So let's jump to our 4K 120 footage, and this is the real-time footage playing back at full quality. Very interested in this clip. It was playing back good, and then it started to drop some frames and then just completely lagged. So let's start over at the beginning and drop down to 1/2 and see if we can do a little better. Dropping frames, lagging. Same spot too, that's very interesting. Let's go 1/4 and see if we can get a little farther or not drop any frames at all. That'd be great. Yeah, same spot. This keeps lagging. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but playing back in real time is really, this computer is really struggling with it. So let's jump over to the interpreted 4K footage, and we'll play this back at full quality to start with, see if we can get some dropped frames. This looks really smooth. This looks good. At full quality, this looks pretty good. Uncolor graded, but this is playing back really smooth. Let's try to fast forward through this and see if we can get some dropped frames. This looks great to me. I don't see any dropped frames. My handy camera work right here all over the place, but I don't see any dropped frames, especially those little drops of water are really a telltale sign if you see any of them jumping around of dropped frames. So this was a good example clip for this. And at full quality, we're playing this interpreted footage back, fast forwarded by 1, pressing the L key once, and this looks smooth to me, so I'm pretty surprised. Let's go back and add a ridiculous color grade on here and see if we can get this footage to lag at all. So far, I'm very surprised that the 16 gig didn't handle that 4K footage a little better. I thought more memory would give us a longer duration for the 4K 120 footage to have like a bigger buffer to play back a little smoother. It really wasn't that much of a night and day difference between these two computers. So let's put some color grades on this and see how these work. This is our 24 frames per second getting played back at full quality. This looks okay to me. Let's just fast forward once and see if we can get this to drop any frames. I don't see any frames dropping or skipping or lagging, so let's jump to our shorter 4K 24 frames per second clip. This is the color graded version. This clip's a little slower, so it would be harder to see if there's choppy frames between it, but let's fast forward once, and I don't see any choppiness in the frames happening here. So 24 frames per second footage on both of these computers plays back pretty well. For our full resolution 60p real-time footage, this looks like we're dropping some frames, so let's drop this down to 1/2 and see if we can do a little better. This is playing back better. There are not that many dropped frames. There's really no drop frames at all. I'm very surprised. For our color graded 60p footage being played back at full resolution and interpreted to our 24 frames per second timeline, this doesn't look like we're really dropping any frames at all. There's no stutters, there's no lag. A little bit of lag right there. Let's try to go to 1/2 and fast forward once through this and see how it handles it. I haven't been seeing any dropped frames yet. Dropping the resolution down to 1/2 even allows us to fast forward through our footage, and there were no dropped frames at all, so that was pretty good. Now for the interesting color graded 4K 120 footage. This is the real-time footage, playing it back at 1/2, and of course we're getting a lot of lag. So let's drop this down to 1/4. And I'm anticipating a lot of lag here too, but let's see. Yeah, lagging still. I know 1/8 performs very strangely on this beta software, so this probably isn't going to help, but we can try it. And we're lagging pretty hard with that too. So both of these computers cannot play back the real-time 120 footage in a 24 frames per second timeline. That being said, my big computer can't do that either. So this is a really tough test. So let's check out the interpreted 120 at full resolution with a pretty crazy color grade on it. Wow, I am very surprised. If you're enjoying this content, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to find your way back here in the future. But I'm very surprised with this 120 interpreted color graded footage playing back at full quality. There hasn't been a single dropped frame in the full quality version of this at all. And I've watched it through twice just to make sure. And I have been very surprised how it's handling this. Let's jump in and just duplicate this color grade more to see if we can get this footage to break down. So let's go, we're at full quality still, same clip, and with this ridiculous color grade duplicated 2 more times, we're getting a lot of dropped frames here, but it doesn't look like it's dropping a frame and pausing and then fast forwarding to catch up and then dropping a frame and pausing. It's just choppy and dropping frames. So I would never use this color grade this heavy, but let's drop it down to 1/2 to see if we can actually watch this footage back in real time without dropping any frames. And it's doing a much better job at 1/2, even with this ridiculous color grade it's going through. Even with this ridiculous color grade at 1/2 resolution, this computer was able to play this back, and both the 8 and the 16 gigabyte versions exceeded my expectations for a computer that costs between $1,000 and $1,300 refurbished. If you have a Sony A7S III and you're looking for a computer that will edit this footage, I'm surprisingly recommending a MacBook Air. But that being said, if you are using 24 frames per second and you don't really color grade your footage very much, and you're just doing basic edits, the lower 8 gigabyte model will be plenty for you. If you're doing more heavy color grades or using higher frame rates in interpreting footage and doing effects, the 16 gigabytes will be a very good quality of life upgrade for you, because you can't update this memory later after you buy the computer. But if you are more of an advanced user, the 16 gigabytes is really going to shine through. And I had varying results based on other people's videos, so I decided to buy both of these just to check for myself to make sure I wasn't going to make a mistake. And I think going with the 16 gigabyte variant, just even with those little bit of improvements, is going to be a very good quality of life update. And with that refurbished pricing, this comes out to be a really good deal. And just to check on both of my computers, I wanted to check the battery cycle because I was a little skeptical about buying a reconditioned computer. And the 8 gigabyte model had 16 battery cycles. The 16 gigabyte had 8 battery cycles. I know this isn't a very big sample size of 2 computers, but having battery counts of like 16 and less is pretty reassuring. they look like brand new computers when I got them, and they perform really well. So if you're on a budget and looking for a mobile workstation solution for your A7 III, I would recommend the 16 gigabyte version, and I have the 1 terabyte version with my 16 gig here. And I would say I would really recommend, if you don't like to use these like Samsung T7 drives, to get a larger internal drive, because with this A7S III footage, it gets very large quickly. And the 512 of this, after I just put my most recent Godox video on both of these computers just to see if they would play back, and it was tough because I couldn't add another project to this computer unless I deleted that other one. So with this 1 terabyte one, I could put 2, 3, 4 projects of a pretty decent size onto just the internal drive and not need my SSD. But let me know what you guys think of these in the comments down below. Will you be getting the 8 gigabyte version or the 16 gigabyte version? And how much storage space are you getting? I know that's a completely silly question, but that is one that took me a lot of time to think about. And at the end, I just ended up buying both of them. And I think the 8 gigabyte version is going to go back to Apple. And I'm going to keep this 16 gigabyte version as my daily driver. Again, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Your likes and subscriptions really do help me out. And if you have any feedback about the video too, let me know, and I would love to make these videos better in the future. And check out this video that the Googlebot thinks you'll like, or check out this video about my computer that I made that costed way more than this computer.